At minus 71 degrees in the frozen heart of Siberia, when even the wolves hide and the air itself feels like broken glass in your lungs, an old woman heard a knock at her wooden door. But it wasn't a man. It wasn't a neighbor. It was a wild bear, and at her feet lay a dying cub. What happened next would defy fear, nature, and everything she thought she knew about survival. In the forgotten outskirts of Siberia, where the world becomes nothing but snow and silence for months at a time, 80-year-old Yenya Petrova lived alone in her small wooden cabin. The wind screamed like a living thing that night. Frost crept through the cracks of the logs. Inside, the only warmth came from the iron stove glowing faint orange. Anya wrapped her wool shawl tighter around her thin shoulders and whispered an old prayer her mother had taught her decades ago. At minus 71 degrees Celsius, survival wasn't bravery. It was routine. She had lived through wars, famine, and burying a husband and a son long before winter stole her strength. Loneliness had become her closest companion. The snow outside stretched endlessly, swallowing sound and memory alike. And then a heavy thud struck her door. Anya froze. No one traveled in such weather. No one. Another thud. Stronger this time. Her heart pounded. Slowly, carefully, she lifted the oil lamp and shuffled toward the door. The wood trembled as if something massive leaned against it. When she pulled it open, the wind roared into her face. And standing there, towering, breath steaming in violent bursts, was a massive brown bear. Anya did not scream. Perhaps fear had left her long ago. Or perhaps grief had already taught her what real pain felt like. The bear did not growl. It did not lunge. Instead, it stepped aside. And there on the small wooden step lay a tiny cub, barely moving. Its fur was crusted with ice, its breathing shallow. One small paw twitched weakly. The mother bear looked at Anya, not with hunger, not with rage, but with something startlingly human, desperation. The wind howled between them, but for a moment the world felt still. Anya's mind screamed at her to shut the door, to survive, but her heart saw her son, feverish, burning. Weak in her arms years ago when no doctor could reach their remote village in time, she stepped forward. The bear stiffened. "I have buried one child," Anya whispered through frozen breath. "I will not bury another if I can help it." Slowly, trembling, she bent down and touched the cub. It was ice cold. The mother bear did not move. Anya lifted the cub with surprising strength for someone her age. It weighed less than a sack of flour. Too light, dangerously light. She stepped back inside. For a long second, the bear remained at the doorway. Then it did something no one would believe. It lowered its massive body onto the snow and waited. Inside the cabin, Anya worked quickly. She wrapped the cub in wool blankets. She placed it near the stove. She melted snow into warm water and dipped a cloth to rub life back into its frozen limbs. The cub whimpered faintly. Outside, through the half-open door, the mother bear remained still as stone. Hours passed. Anya fed the cub diluted goat milk from a spoon. She crushed dried herbs she once used for fevers and mixed them carefully. She hummed lullabies she had not sung in 50 years. And sometime near dawn, the cub opened its eyes, small, dark, alive. Anya let out a trembling breath she didn't realize she had been holding. She turned toward the door. The bear was still there, waiting. And then the cub made a soft, fragile sound. The mother bear lifted her head. The moment stretched between predator and human. Not enemies, not rulers of each other. Just two mothers connected by something older than fear. But the storm outside was growing worse. And keeping the cub alive would not be the hardest part. Keeping them all alive through the coming days would test everything Anya had. The blizzard did not stop for 3 days. Snow buried the path. The temperature dropped even lower, the kind of cold that steals breath mid-inhalation. The cub grew stronger slowly, but it could not yet stand. Fever came in waves. Each time its tiny body trembled, Anya feared she was losing it. And the mother bear never left. She did not attempt to enter the cabin. She did not show aggression. She simply remained close, sheltering herself beside the wooden wall, trusting the old woman inside. Trust. It was a fragile bridge between worlds. On the second night, food ran low. Anya stared at her nearly empty pantry. Potatoes frozen solid, a small sack of flour, dried fish hanging from a hook. If she fed the cub, she might not have enough for herself. If she stopped feeding the cub, it would die. She thought of her son again, the helplessness. The silence after his last breath. "Ah, no," she whispered. She cooked the last of her fish into broth and fed the cub with patient hands. Hunger gnawed at her own stomach, but warmth filled her chest instead. On the fourth morning, sunlight broke across the snow like liquid gold. The cub, weak but determined, pushed itself onto its tiny paws. It stumbled. Anya laughed, a rusty sound unused for years. "You stubborn little thing," she murmured. The mother bear approached the doorway again, careful, slow. Anya carried the cub outside, heart racing. The bear rose to her full height, powerful and magnificent against the white wilderness. For a second, Anya wondered if she had misjudged everything. Then the cub made a small, happy grunt. The mother bear stepped forward and gently nudged it with her nose. No roar, no threat, only reunion. The cub wobbled toward her. The mother bear licked its head carefully, checking, reassuring, and then the bear turned to Anya. In that silent exchange, no words were needed. "Thank you." The mother bear nudged the cub to follow. They began walking toward the forest line. After several steps, the cub stopped. It turned. It looked back at the old woman standing alone on her porch. For a moment, time held its breath. Then the cub hurried to catch up with its mother. Anya stood in the snow long after they disappeared among the trees. The cabin felt quieter than before, but not emptier. Weeks passed. The winter slowly loosened its grip. One afternoon, Anya found large paw prints near her cabin, and smaller ones beside them, left intentionally. Not wandering tracks, a visit. Anya smiled to herself. In a world that often feels cold beyond survival, warmth still exists in the most unexpected places, even between a wild bear and an 80-year-old woman, because sometimes courage is not the absence of fear. Sometimes it is opening the door anyway, and sometimes the greatest act of humanity is recognizing it in something not human at all. Final emotional message for viewers. In the harshest winters of our lives, when everything feels frozen, when survival feels impossible, compassion is the fire that keeps us alive. No matter how different we seem, love, trust, and courage, our language is understood by every living heart. And sometimes when something wild knocks at your door, it isn't danger, it's destiny.